For me, what I've always been interested in is kind of this contrast between rich and poor, between just the craziness of the world, how different people live different ways, how, whatever, people are the same, people are different. But like just to try to photograph in a similar way all these different things and let them kind of like speak for themselves. I would say people think of me as a portrait photographer. Well, no, it's weird because some people think of me as a portrait photographer. Other people think of me as like a landscape travel photographer. So I kind of like that because they don't always cross. I think in the States especially, I'm considered like this kind of third world photographer who photographs like down and outs or something. I don't really know. I do tons of celebrity portraits for the Sunday newspaper magazines in the UK. I photographed James Brown for them. I photographed P. Diddy, Liza Minelli, I don't know, all kinds of people. I'm still pretty shy, but I was really shy. And for me to like meet people or do anything, the good thing with photography and working for magazines or just traveling and going on these things was I was thrown into these situations where I just kind of had to deal. And I like that. And I like the fact that I get sent places and from one week to the next, I'm not really sure who I'm going to meet, where I'm going to go. And, I'll do advertising, I'll do my own stuff, I'll do portraits of celebrities or poor people, or I'll do some kind of documentary thing. And for me, it's always interesting. I'm definitely like a hoarder. A collector. It runs in the family. My mom is like crazy hoarder. It's so hard for me to throw anything away, but at the same time I travel all the time and I've gotten quite good at going places and buying things that you can't really find in other places or it's harder to or whatever. I buy photographs, I buy things that I think are weird, I buy anything sort of portrait based. Cups, I don't know, I bought like 5 jockey coffee mugs the other day because they're portraits of jockeys. It's just retarded. I like this one because he's kind of like Burt Reynolds. I don't know why I collect portraits. I think that portraits just kind of work aesthetically. Some of this from Mexico, South Africa. I got my Pablo Escobars. Well, we got Robin Hood and him as a businessman or senator and then him casual. They're made by a guy in Medellin. This is from Mexico. These are some of my favorite types of photographs. These are these carved old photographs. I got a bunch of them. They're really fragile. A lot of them are really old. These are photos I bought in Egypt. So these are Egypt in the 70s. Yeah, they're hand colored from the 70s. It got a little wild there in the end. But I'm into studio photography. I got this in Colombia. I think it's a photographer's advertisement for his skills. I like this one. You have the butt, you have the beer being poured. I like that one. Or that. What else? I collect records as well. This is Gal Costa. I also like this one though. This is one of my favorites of the moment right now. The salsa is my law, really. This is Patrick, trusty assistant for years now. I'm from San Francisco. I went to university in Santa Cruz. I studied drawing and painting, and I got into photography kind of by accident. I worked for a professor of mine in northeast Ivory Coast. That first trip, I didn't consider myself a photographer. I liked taking pictures, but I just wanted to travel. I think that's kind of how I got into photography. The first photos I took were actually there. I went back to California. Yeah, I had no money. I got a job in a bar. And while I was working in the restaurant, I was also teaching drawing and painting at San Quentin, at the prison. And then I really wanted to take pictures of them. So I started taking all these photos. And then I put this whole little notebook together. And I would carry this box. This is before laptops, everything. Maybe I'd changed boxes at one point, but this is basically it. I I used to bring this to Europe with me all the time, and then I would show this, and this is how I'd get jobs. So these are a couple guys from my class. 5150 is like clinically insane. So these are all from like the early 90s, I'd say. In London, you'd always have meetings in the pub, and as I'd get more and more drunk, eventually I'd start showing my photos to people. And one of the guys, he started doing Caterpillar, and he basically hired me to do photos like my photos from the prison for Caterpillar. That's when I first started really making some money and started figuring maybe I could make a living at photography. The guy I worked with on Caterpillar, he started working at Camper. And then he hired me for the first campaign he did there. And I did 6 campaigns with Camper. He wanted something a little bit quirky, and he gave us a lot of freedom. I mean, tons of freedom. It seemed like we could do anything we wanted. And then when I was like on the 5th or 6th campaign for Camper, I was asked to be creative director at Colors. Colors was this magazine that took things, and each issue had a theme, whether it was war or whatever. And instead of doing a type of documentary photography that was probably seen a lot at that time, we were trying to do maybe a more polished image of this thing. Not artificial, but just, you know, maybe well lit, well composed, hopefully like respect. Quite interesting to look at. I mean, I took the same equipment I would take to photograph some celebrity or I'd take on my ad jobs, and I would set it up pretty much the same way, but you're photographing a refugee or, you know, maybe a doctor or something. Not necessarily a stolen moment, something that is about like participation, where the sitter has to participate in the photo as well. You're not just taking something from them. Kind of like this negotiation or something. You have to work with the person. Some of these are my own projects, and then other stuff. The telenovela series is something that is definitely important to me. The telenovela project started with Colors. The idea of doing a whole issue on soap operas in Mexico City came up. I thought they were interesting because so many people watched them, because it's kind of like there's these unattainable dreams for the people watching them. But there's all these like social and political things that are behind it, and that in it, I mean, you're dealing with things like with money, with race, with these like Cinderella stories. I don't know, you know, part of it was also because half my family's from Mexico, and my family came across the border illegally. They were poor, trying to better themselves, whatever, trying to get this like dream. It all kind of made sense to me in that way. I've been shooting in Mexico a lot over the years, and tomorrow I'm going back to shoot, but to start a new project. I'm going to Mexico tomorrow, so I'm packing now. I'll probably throw my clothes in with the tripod and stuff. Travel with this, the lights, some light stands here. This is the camera I use. It's a great camera. These are film holders. This film here goes in there. And that's kind of it. And all my spare Mexican pesos. Go. We're on our way to LaGuardia right now to take a plane to Monterrey, Mexico. It's 4 in the morning, and I had like 3 hours of sleep. So we just got here in Monterrey. I've been to a lot of places in Mexico, but not here. We came to Monterrey, Mexico to do a shoot on the fashion and hairstyle of these kids who listen to a lot of vallenato and cumbia from Colombia. They call themselves Colombians, but they're not Colombians. They're from Mexico, and particularly they're from Monterrey. I don't know, they've been kind of called Cholombians. with a kind of like documentary style portrait shoot, you're really dependent on the people showing up, and a lot of times they don't show up because they don't know you and they don't really, I think you got to kind of bring yourself to them. So first we went to the market where they buy music, they can buy videos, shirts, hats, trinkets, Colombian things, Colombian pictures. They buy this and it's kind of a gathering point. They sell a lot of bootleg films, and there seemed to be a little like brothel behind where we were shooting. I didn't want to shoot them in necessarily with all the grime and stuff, like say in the market. I wanted to keep the image clean because they're interesting enough on their own, and I think the background would just distract. I wasn't trying to make some kind of social statement about where they live or about anything like that. It's more about them and their style. I still shoot mostly with the 4x5, almost only. My camera is made in Germany. It's a Linhof. I'm like this dinosaur. I get hired on Abjad to use my 4x5. And then the art directors are like, wow, I haven't seen one of those in a long time. They're really slow. That sometimes I hate my camera, but it's great at the same time. I guess the thing was I was never really like a 35mm kind of war photographer style, like run around, shoot, snap, snap, snap. Different angles and stuff. Since I did do painting and since I was used to like setting up compositions, I felt more comfortable with that. Still trying to figure out my framing here. I've never really been into the idea of like trying to convince someone to do a photo by giving them money. I think it creates kind of a weird dynamic. So my way around that's a lot of times been to just shoot Polaroids and give them Polaroids. ¿Cuál te gusta más? So I'm giving him the one he likes the most. And keep a few for myself so I can work out what I'm doing. I can critique how the shoot's going.
Sale bien, ma. Sale bien los pelos.
I will also show them what I'm doing. I think it builds a sense of trust. If they look at the Polaroid and they see what I'm doing, they show it to their friends. The friends get interested. The friends want pictures. We just got our first shots, about 5 or 6 guys. Tonight we're going to a party, and if all goes well, we'll be working pretty fast and we'll get quite a bit done. Obviously, people are hearing a lot about Mexico these days for violence and drugs. I've been coming here fairly often, and I've never really had bad experiences so far, but you can tell that there's some tension here. We knew of some concerts and we were going to try to shoot in these clubs, but when we asked for permission, the owners said no because a lot of gangsters or narcos hang out in these places. It says quite dangerous for us, that at least we'd get beat up, if not worse. And they also said that the kids probably stay away from there more now. So we went out to the suburbs. We went to a club called Lone Star, and basically that had tons of these kids there. They are quite young. They seem to be all mostly teenagers, and basically they dance around in circles. It all seems pretty mellow, actually.
The way Stefan shoots is we always do kind of a portable photo studio. We try to find a wall usually, but this one has too much texture to it, so we want to keep it simple.
I've shot a lot of times outside clubs or all over the place. I'm quite used to doing this. I like doing it. I'll often let the person pose themselves. I'll compose it the way I like, but I often want them to kind of present themselves, whether it is a refugee or someone who's insane or some politician. When I was like, I think 16, my parents got divorced and my dad was a lawyer. My mom was an art teacher. She wanted to go to Italy because her family was from Italy and she wanted to go there. And we went and lived in Florence. At that point, I totally didn't like Renaissance painting or anything. I finally got into school, like a high school, an art high school. So I had to copy all these famous paintings. I had to copy like famous sculptures. And by the end of the year, I actually started getting quite into Renaissance art, especially like the older portraits and stuff. And I like Flemish painting a lot too. I would say that's a huge influence in my portraiture.
Sí, está chida, ¿cómo no?
So we got quite a few people that night, maybe 20. I don't know, we stayed there till about 3 in the morning. Yesterday we photographed downtown. There's a 7-Eleven that's below a radio station. All of the Cholombianos, they hang out there.
Cuenta que aquí se junta toda la banda de muchas colonias y aquí mismo empiezan a conocerse y se empiezan a mandar saludos en la radio. O sea, está el locutor, aquí arriba es la estación.
We went there, we just picked some of the guys, asked them, and if they're into it, then we set up a little studio around the block. And yeah, I think we got a lot of good things. At the end of the day, I think that the work still should work on a lot of different levels. It should be interesting to look at. It should be technically well done. The subject itself, hopefully, it's got a political thing. Maybe the photo makes you think about something. Maybe it's not just eye candy. It's not just a one idea thing. All right, I think we're done. I think I'm going to be really happy with the shoot. I think these guys are pretty genius, and just by taking time to sort of document their style, I think I think I'll be really happy with it.